Set you up.
The meeting will come to order. We are now holding the April meeting of the Fayette County School Corporation's Board of School Trustees. Will you join me in a salute to our American flag, being led this evening by Caitlin Tuttle from Connersville Middle School.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, our school highlights will be led by Ms. Denham, I assume?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, and again, thank you for the honor for us to present to you some highlights from Connersville Middle School. As you are already well aware of the achievement and growth that CMS enabled CMS to receive an A grade from the IDOE. Tonight, I'm not really here to share any special programs that made a significant impact because we feel there are a culminating group of programs that we have that have led us to our student achievement level. But I will let you know that we do continue to focus on academic needs of our students and the population we serve to both challenge and to support their academic growth with some intentional teaching of the standards and the skills that are required by them to make a year or more growth. To continue to increase our student achievement and rigor in our curriculums, there are two areas that we have tried to address that has been a staff driven with consideration for what is in the best interest of our students in order to improve our quality of education at CMS. We currently operate under an 8-period schedule with 42-minute periods, and through research of other schools that can provide more instructional time, we have created a 7-period schedule that will increase our instructional time to 50 minutes per class. We plan to implement this during the 2013-14 school year and are currently developing the master plan with some intentional planning to provide more departmental collaboration on curriculum, assessments, and other factors that are impacting our student achievement. The planning process also has included a priority to maintain the courses that we currently offer students. Those courses that also support the core curriculum. Tonight I am very pleased to have with me teachers of our Fine Arts Department to share some of the highlights of how student achievement is supported with critical thinking, problem solving, and literacy instruction through our fine arts. So I'd like tonight to introduce Mrs. Janet Kane, who is our 8th grade art teacher, and she has brought a student with her. I'll let her introduce our student tonight. And then Mrs. Greason, Chris Greason, is our 7th grade art teacher, as well as Tammy Fall, who teaches general music to both 7th and 8th grade this year. And they're going to share a little bit about how our fine arts is definitely a piece of our achievement process throughout CMS. Ms. Kane, you're welcome.
Good evening. As Beth said, I'm Janet Kane, and I teach 8th grade art at Connersville Middle School. This is Caitlin Tuttle, and she is an 8th grade art student. And she is here to show you a little bit about her artwork and talk to you about that. Before she does that, I would like to read a few things to you. As Mrs. Denham said, we do support the Common Core. We do critical thinking skills, problem solving, and I want to give you 3 quotes that have to do with that, and then 3 quotes written by students. Okay? The first thing is, students who study art are 4 times more likely to be recognized for academic achievement and 3 times more likely to be awarded for school attendance. Arts and music education programs are mandatory in countries that rank consistently among the highest for math and science test scores, like Japan, Hungary, and the Netherlands. Researchers find that sustained learning in music and theater correlates strongly with higher achievement in both math and reading. So there's plenty of research and evidence about how the arts contribute to our overall curriculum. And I want to read to you these quotes today, and then we're going to let Caitlin show you what she's got. The first quote says, "Art has made a big difference in my life. I can express myself through art. I feel special when I make art, and I feel unique and powerful. Without art in other encore classes, I would absolutely hate school. Art makes my day not so boring. Art makes me feel worth something." Here's another one, okay? These are written today by students. I told them I was coming here. These are 8th grade students. They were very pleased to be able to contribute to this, okay? And they would have been here if they could have been. The second quote, "Art helps everyone express themselves even if you're not very good at art. It can still be an escape from bad things in your life. Having art class in school helps us express ourselves at school. We normally don't get that option." And this, the last one quickly. "Art is such a beautiful thing. It makes my life less stressful. I can sit there and express myself and my feelings through it. I can use art without being judged for anything, and it takes away my anger. It makes my personal life easier. Art is just beautiful." And I want to applaud those students for taking the time to do that. And but right now, after sharing that, I would like to again introduce Caitlin Tuttle, and she would like to talk to you a few minutes about her artwork and art at the middle school.
All right. Go ahead, this one. Okay. Ever since I was little, art has always been my favorite thing to do, whether it's just doodling or just serious projects. It's always been a way for me to express my emotions without ever yelling or just saying something that I know I'll regret later. It allows me to express myself without anyone really judging me. When I get older, I plan on becoming a cartoonist, and for, as you may see by passing around, I know that this is what I was born to do. This has been one of my favorite things to do in all my life. And even if it's just sketching, it still pleases me to know that after I draw it, I look at it and say, this is what I've drawn, and this is what I'll become from it. There's nothing else I'd rather do than just become an artist.
How does it help you how does art help you in your other classes, like, say, math or?
How it can help me from other classes, a lot of visuals are used in math. Say with most students are visual learners. By having a diagram or a drawing out, it allows them to see what they're looking at, and maybe perhaps help them better understand what they're learning.
Do you have any questions for Caitlin? Her artwork's coming around. I really want you to take a good look at that. And that's just a minor part. She has sketchbook after sketchbook after sketchbook. She's working on a computer now. And we have a lot of students who are really into this type of art, or even other types of art, and are expressing themselves in this way in our school, even with computers or without computers. So she's lucky enough to be able to do that.
Caitlin, how long have you been drawing?
Ever since I could pick up a pencil, even in preschool, pretty much.
Have you had any training?
My dad told me a few tips, but other than that, I've been self-taught.
Well, I had a friend that could draw like this when I was in school, and I was always amazed that he could do that. I mean, the perspective and the proportion and everything was just, it seemed to come natural to him, and I never really understood how he could do it, because, you know, I've got stick people down pretty good.
You're ahead of me.
Yeah, but beyond that, I just don't know how people do that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in. I want to thank the parents who also came this evening to support her as well. Next, I'd like to introduce Mrs.
Fall, you know, you hear we do have a band and choir, which are primarily performing arts at our school, at most any school. Mrs. Fall actually teaches our general music section, but is a musician herself. So, you know, general music, I think, is an unknown art. I think a lot, maybe even yourselves, aren't real familiar with what do we really allow or are able to teach our students through the fine arts of music, and in art itself speaks more for itself. So Mrs. Fall is here to share with you a little bit of what general music helps to do to support our student achievement and education. I'm going to turn it over.
Thank you. All right, Mrs. Grayson is going to show a real quick video, and this is a video that was done by one of my students, and it's from the general music classroom with the keyboards that we use in class.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, now.
Actually, I haven't seen this video yet, so
Just I've seen it.
it kind of jumps around, I guess.
This was done by one of our students
Yes, a 7th grader.
who assured us that he knew exactly what he was doing.
Well, that's good to give them the experience.
Oh, boy.
Okay, now why is this doing that?
Maybe we don't have to watch it.
Who was just talking about?
Doesn't recognize the phone.
Doesn't recognize the phone. Yay. Anybody know a trick? Just go.
Okay, well,
You can say
what you were going to see was a classroom of these keyboards. This is called the Yamaha MIE, or Music and Education Program. The school corporation purchased this program for the middle school in 1996. So it's almost 20 years old, which I feel is fantastic that it's lasted that long. I was telling Mrs. Denham the other day, we're using the original Apple computer to run it that came with the program. So I tell the kids now, I said, you know, the keyboards are older than you are. You need to really take care of them. We want them to last as long as possible. So each one of the keyboards are set up for 2 students. They're small keyboards. We work at the keyboards generally 2 days a week, and they learn just the basics. They do take general music class at 7th and 8th grade right now, and it's a 12-week course. So I figured up, and I have about 300 students a year, so since 1996, about 5,100 students have come through this. Okay, so a lot of them have got a chance to play the keyboards. The 7th graders then, on the days that we're not at the keyboards, we cover a couple other units during the 12 weeks. We do a unit over the orchestra. They learn all the instruments of the orchestra, what families they belong to, what they look like, what they sound like, how to act at an orchestra performance, how it's different from other concerts maybe that they've attended, and it's a lot different style than what they may be used to. Then the second 6 weeks, which we just started, we cover a unit over composers and eras of music. There are 4 eras of music that we cover. We start with the Baroque era, way back with Bach. Maybe you recognize that name. We cover Bach, and then Beethoven, Johann Strauss, and we do some Liszt and John Philip Sousa. So we kind of get some of them that I hope that they've at least heard their names before, and then they get a chance to learn a lot more about them and know more about them. We study historical things that happened during those time periods, which helps us relate to the history background, and learn about the composers as well as the musical styles, instruments that were used, and things like that during those time periods as well. The 8th graders do a whole different curriculum the first 6 weeks during the 12 weeks besides the keyboards. They also do a unit on jazz history, and we talk a lot about Glenn Miller and Benny Goodman and all those good guys. They learn a lot about, once again, the bands and how they're made up, what instruments are used, and once again, historical things. We talk a lot about the Depression, about racism and problems that a lot of the band members had at the time, and things like that. And then the 8th grader, or the second 6 weeks with the 8th graders, we also cover a unit on early rock music. Now they want to get into the music of today, and we don't really get into that. We cover rock from about the early 1950s into the 1970s. And once again, we get into a lot of the social issues that were happening during that time, and cover a lot of historical ideas. So that's pretty much what we do in general music class, and like I said, it's a 12-week class. It goes by really quick. Any questions?
Thank you.
Mrs. Greason.
Sure. I think this is going to work. Well, hope so. So I teach 7th grade art. It's also a 12-week class. And about 3 years ago, I decided that Leonardo da Vinci was such a fascinating person that we needed to do a research project on him. And we started out doing the traditional way with posters and, a few books, and then it's just grown and blossomed into a 3-week project where they have books at their level plus an internet pathfinder, and the kids pick which topic in Da Vinci's life that they're interested in. We've got 30 different topics, so they have some choice there. And we do book research first, and then we do research in the lab. And they are required to do the, who, what, when, where question type styles and pick out the vocabulary. And instead of, I ask them at first, do you want me to teach you about him? Do you want to teach yourself about him, or do you want to teach each other? We want to teach each other. We're like, okay. So you become an expert on one little section, and then at the end we all see each other's slideshows, their PowerPoints continuously looping, and answer questions about them. So this is Seth Beans. He just finished last week, and I thought he did a really lovely job. So we're also doing elements of art, balance and color and font styles and font sizes and how to organize on the page and get the most important information. They want to do sentences, which usually all their English teachers are saying, you gotta write in complete sentences, and here I am saying, no, I don't want complete sentences. Bullet points, and they're like, ah. So they kind of struggle with that, but it's a skill that they don't really get anywhere else. When I first moved here, I was doing the LD position, so I was going into math and English classes, and that really helped that I had that background, so I knew what those teachers wanted, so I can make those connections. Da Vinci is such a powerful research tool because he does so much with science, anatomy studies. We can hit proportion, we hit perspective, and then we can go in the classroom and actually practice doing those things. So it has a little more meaning. I also had to do all the citation stuff, so we've got all those literacy standards that we're hitting hard. So they kind of complain, but then they're very proud of their work. It's, after 3 weeks, they feel like they've done something, and it's worth sharing. So that's nice. Let's see. I brought a second one done by Drew Shirk. The boys tend to gravitate towards the topics of the inventions. So flight and war inventions, and the water inventions, useful movement inventions, modern models of inventions, they've all got those choices. I tell them, if you don't mind blood, you might like the topic of anatomy research. Okay. I was wondering if this was going to show up. The background on Drew's is this gorgeous, I don't know how he did that, but I was just in love with that background. The new PowerPoints have kind of some different backgrounds than what I was used to in years past, so they do have some artistic effects that the kids can get in there. We also, one of the topics is what's going on religiously, what's going on, and who's exploring the world. They're kind of shocked to realize, oh, that was the time of Columbus. Okay, Italian Renaissance. Where does this fit in the timeline of history? So we know what's going on politically, and we teach I try to do a little Italian words every day to give them a little flavor of Italy. But anyway, that's Drew's. And then the other that I wanted to show you was our second big project. That's a 3-weeker, and that's our sculpture project. And that's why these colorful creatures have invaded our territory. I've been wanting to do this for years, and this is the first year I had the guts to try it. I've been collecting recycled materials, and my first 12 weeks kids, I'm like looking around and realizing, wow, they're so well behaved. This might be it. Here's my opportunity. They're my guinea pigs. We can do this sculpture project. And it just turned out really exciting. They were really into it. I'm so used to having a little clicker thing. Oh, now I'm going too fast. Choice was crucial. They always want to be able to choose things, so they can choose their theme for their creature. The first 12 weeks we took the 100 funniest words in the English language, and they picked one. They tried to make a creature that expressed the sound of that word. They might not even know what the word meant, but they were trying to express that. The second 12 weeks we took the SAT adverbs and adjectives, because those are good for them. And they made creatures that were either expressing that emotion or had that quality about them. And they got to name their creatures, and they got to pick all the different materials. So the choices of cardboard and plastic and balloons and wire, armature, problem solving. And some of the ones that I brought were some of the examples of struggles with armature. They had to plan ahead. They had to figure out when things went wrong. This guy was totally different in the original plan. He was almost like a sphinx with these big, legs and stuff, and she just had trouble after trouble. And it was really kind of an ironic situation because she was having lots of troubles at home, and then suddenly art was mirroring all her frustrations that she was having at home. She was, feeling like she was, there were tears involved. And so she would, I said, ask some of your peers, or she and I talked about it, and she kind of went a totally different direction. This is conciliatory Catalina. So she said she chose the name because it was peaceful, and I need and like peaceful things in my life. The bright colors help people be more peaceful and happy. She's flying, where before she was sitting there waiting for people to come to her so she could spread her peace. Now she's flying, and so she can take the initiative to spread her peace dust all over the world. Then she has this adventure with a friend who is saying, I'm always going to be mean and unhappy, and she works her magic on this friend. Shortening the little synopsis on that. This one actually looks like the child who made it. Which she was a student that I got really close to, and she moved, and she left this as a gift, and it's just, she's having little struggles staying together, but it's just really special. She took a lot of time on the detail, on the texture, and her personality just comes through with that. Almost makes me cry. Here we go. Yeah. So how to make things that fit together, secure joints. This one turned out really cute. I didn't want them to do something that we could say, oh, that's an elephant, or oh, that's a chipmunk. I wanted them to be innovative. We just studied Da Vinci. He's all about trying new innovative things. What's happening? Did I push something I shouldn't have?
Maybe.
Teamwork. These three wanted to do a poker game. And yes, I don't know why, but we displayed it, all three of them. They did cats and dogs, and they had this elaborate story of every move in the poker game and why each one, had that different SAT words, and yeah, they got into it. Taking pride in their work, those smiles are genuine. They were excited about it. We displayed them in the media center, and people gave them a lot of positive feedback. Innovative, part of the points were innovation. So this little guy on the left, that was a CD machine where you put a CD in and strange things happened to it, and then it changed shapes and came out differently. So he had all these CDs with all this detail, and he did it in camo, which really goes with electronics, I thought. It was his personal interest all sprung together in that. This was an ambitious design, not an innovative design because it looked a lot like the model that I showed them, but it was tough to get all those things to happen. To hang it, get the wings going, get that neck strong, get those flames coming out. Here's the one that I was saying, taking risks, struggling, adapting, and finally some success. So connection with language arts, we're expanding vocabulary. This time we're using idioms, this 12 weeks. We just started it today. And so they're really getting a kick out of the idioms because they get to do the double meaning. So they can make it like it sounds, but yet they've got to be able to be clever enough to figure out something visually to make both meanings happen. So this will be interesting. Writing prompts at the end, I got the best writing I ever have from my first 12 weeks kids because they were interested in telling me their experience with the sculpture, the process, the problem solving. Ask them, what did you have trouble with? How'd you overcome it? What do you like about it? What didn't you like about it? What would you have done differently? And they were just writing and writing and writing. The second group, I had them write stories about, okay, if this is their personality, this is their character trait, what happens when they interact with somebody else who has one differently? Now tell us a story. How would they act? So anytime you're doing the hands-on task, you're engaging in the promoting problem solving. Here we go, an awkward, unlucky person for whom things never turn out. So the head was down, the shoulders were bent over, she had dull colors and tears and, yeah, measles. That was the last ditch effort of everything's wrong, I'm breaking out. These are in cahoots, that was a vocabulary word, in cahoots. So they were robbing a bank, you can't really see those white balloons with the cash signs on them up there, but yeah, they'd been up to mischief. So he made those curly hair by putting it with starch, liquid starch, and curling each piece of yarn and then putting it on. This one took a lot of hours. It's kind of porcupine-ish. Anyway, a lot of wire. That was pretty challenging to get the wire to do what they wanted it to do. The expressions needed to, you know, follow with what the words were to try to get those points across. This one was almost incredibly smooth, like she had polished it. Her craftsmanship was incredible, and she decided to put it in a nest. So balance and proportion and texture and all that good stuff. Also newfound focus and persistence. Those of you who might know these boys know that, yeah, I had a little trepidation of whether I could trust them doing this much, you know, they had to have some self-control. They had to pace themselves. They had to control their time, and they were so into it and so proud of it, and I was just really pleased with them. Okay, here I'm having the same little issue again. What am I doing? I don't know. I know I need to wrap this up. Incredibly shy girl. I mean, she cried so much the first few weeks of school. We thought, what is going on with this child? She was just didn't want any attention. But boy, she went after this project, and she didn't mind all the praise from her peers, didn't mind it at all. It was really good. Her mom came in, and she's like, oh, this has been so good for her. You know, she feels comfortable that something that she is skilled to do has, you know, received a recognition. A little bit of humor. Nate had, that's black curly hair that's on the robot that Nate took off and put on himself, and then, yeah, we got a mustache tape thing going over there. Student comments. This is what I've been looking forward to doing. They saw it at the beginning of the year, and then they wanted to turn. I was so excited to come to school to work just, you know, on this creature. Time was going by so fast. I like going shopping. So tomorrow they're going to go shopping. We have all the recycled stuff out, and they get to pick what they're going to use. The last one on the bottom there, it doesn't seem like school. That was an interesting comment. I like to be able to do what I want to do. Painting was my favorite part. I didn't think it would turn out this good. And the last one that really made me feel good was Mrs. Greason, thank you for letting us do this. So that was kind of cool. All right, I'll be able to sit down. Sorry. sorry. I told Beth she's gonna have to pull the plug, because I just, once I start going.
At least
guess
I think
so.
what you can see is that all my teachers have a lot of passion for what they do, and the fine arts doesn't always get showcased in that respect, and I just wanted to have an opportunity to do that tonight. So I want to thank you for your time. If there are any questions you'd like me to entertain, I'd be glad to. If not, we appreciate the opportunity.
I'd just like to make a comment. Every year when we go to the National School Board Conference, there's always a presentation about the importance of fine arts in education, and many of the things that you said tonight, I've heard every year at those. In fact, the first year, the presenter was Julie Andrews, and was talking about music, and she and her daughter are children authors. So
I have noticed her.
We are very blessed that our board, our community supports the fine arts very strongly, and we know that. We just want to have an opportunity to let you see what you're supporting in some ways that you may not have a chance to otherwise. So thank you very much.
thank you very much for presenting to us tonight. And at this point, we're going to be moving into our business part of our meeting. If you'd like to stay, you're certainly welcome, but you're also, if you'd like to leave, we understand that too. So this would be a good time to make that exit if you'd like to leave.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on with our meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as submitted and amended?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Are there any patron comments on agenda items? Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda, which includes approval of minutes from the regular business meeting of March 12, 13. Personnel report, which contained retirements, resignations, leaves of absence, etc. Approval of March 2013 claims 31164 to 31458. Donation of scrap steel from Contract Industrial Tooling for WTCC. Acceptance of $5,896 grant money from Fayette County Education Fund. What is your pleasure?
We're just going to include it in the we talked about giving authority to approve it and check on that.
I'm not sure.
How would we?
Sure, go ahead.
Board, we just received information, I believe yesterday, that our high school robotics club called the Robo Spartans participated in a competition at Rose Holman, and they won the Rookie All-Star Award, and that enables them to attend the national competition in St. Louis, Missouri, in April 24th. We had to issue a purchase order by 5 o'clock today, and they need a check by the end of the week to cover the registration charge, which is $5,000. And so we need permission from you to pre-write that check. By pre-write, I mean it's not in the claim docket. Typically, you approve those after the fact. Our intent was to get that in the consent agenda. If you want to include that in the consent agenda so we don't have to talk about it, or if you want to act on a separate item, since I have talked about it, the choice is yours, but it's important that we give Janie the authority to write that registration check to the folks down in St. Louis, and that will happen before our next board meeting.
Carl, would you like to include that in your motion?
Yes, it would.
Okay, and Ron, how about your second? I'll second. Does everybody approve that?
So that would be
Question?
Typically to the consent agenda?
Typically, what we've done is we've had some situations similar to this. As you approve the claim docket, we just, it said, as part of the claim docket, you've approved this, and so this would be attached to the claim docket.
Mr. Jones, do you have a question?
Also on the agenda is a memo for Magic Moments, for the consent agenda.
Yeah, that's part of the claim docket.
It's actually not.
It's
We
not.
just got the invoice yesterday. We got it, so it's not included in the claim docket. I think the intent was for it to be, but they were unable to get it to central office by that time. I think they were waiting on the fundraising company to send it over.
So do we need to deal with that also? Jane, do we need to?
It would be appreciated, otherwise it would be April before it could be presented for payment, and that would hold their fundraiser up because the items ordered for the fundraiser will not be released until the company has the money.
Okay. Help me here, but why don't we just start all over to include both of these items in the consent agenda? That be all right?
I'm willing to do that,
Okay,
rather than go through amendment.
right. So we have that motion then to include these new items along with the ones that's listed. Ron, what's the pleasure of everyone else? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries to include those. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the action items. Personnel report, Dr. Bayer.
Thank you, Mr. Burgett. Dr. Hodges, members of the board, we have a few persons considered for consideration this evening for employment. Three of these are technology related to our summer work, where we have some preventative maintenance ongoing. That'd be Ann Alcorn for summer technology support, Maya Reed, a summer technology intern, Trey Sturgeon, summer technology support. And in addition, Angela Dunsel, Head Start Nutrition Bus Assistant, Fayette Central, effective March 28. In addition, this is the time of the year that we wish to offer intent to reemploy notices in the form of a reasonable assurance letter to our bus personnel and also all support staff personnel that are less than 12 months to assure that they have a position in the fall. And it does save the corporation possibility of looking at large unemployment payouts. So we do this traditionally each and every year at this time. I ask for your consideration of these items this evening. Thank you, Mr. Burchett.
What's the pleasure of the...
Is there any additional funding required?
No.
I move to accept this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hilton. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carried. Moving on now to the student codes of conduct discipline plans. Dr. Reiki.
Thank you, Mr. Burchett. Dr. Hodges, members of the board, last month you received copies of the elementary, middle school, and high school student planners with some changes from last year to this year that were highlighted for your review, as well as the code of conduct and the bus conducts, which had no changes. One additional piece or a request for changes in your packet that you received tonight. It was brought to our attention two things that were needed correction, and one was on the academic calendar for the second summer session. The word July was left off. It just said June 24th to the 16th, which doesn't really make sense. So by putting the month of July in there, now it makes a lot clearer understanding. And then on the first page, there were number 14. It's highlighted, and it was highlighted in the packet. It was changed. Any student who drives to school will be reported to enroll in a drug testing program. And originally, it said into the voluntary drug testing program. And so there was a disconnect between the word voluntary and required. So the word voluntary has been removed from identifying the drug testing program as a voluntary. So those are the two additions that we did receive from the board. Were there anything else that you had questions about after reviewing? And if not, we'd like to seek approval.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr.
I move to approve the two amendments.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a second? Well, actually, that would be all of the plans, though, not just those two changes,
Okay,
right?
all of them.
Okay, okay. Do I hear a second?
Sure, I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Continuation of the food service agreement with Chartwell's. Dr. Bayer.
Thank you again, Mr. Burgess. I do have Siobhan Carey, our food service director, and also Justin Hawkins, district general manager from Chartwell's here this evening, to provide you an update regarding our food service program. I believe we are doing some things exceedingly well in meeting our goal of providing nutrition with a variety of quality food choices for our students, and I want to just update you, or have them update you on the highlights before we ask for your consideration of continuation of this contract. So, Justin and Siobhan, welcome, and good to see both of you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for letting us come and speak with you this evening. Just give us 1 minute while we get our PowerPoint up and going.
High-tech picture from the...
High-tech picture.
You should patent that.
Yeah, we're working on that. That's a new project.
Yeah, thank you.
Lights, I think, help a little bit.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
So this is our mid-year report. Chartwell's is here. This is our second year. So we just, for some of the new board members, we wanted to give you a history overview of what Chartwell's has done thus far. So we've expanded food choices for all the students, eliminated all fried foods, eliminated all high-fat and sugar breakfast foods, upgraded the student point-of-sale system, so now that all the networks speak with each other. We created a Fayette County catering menu, which they never had before, and we're doing very well with that across the district. Implemented a supper program for 45 students at Maplewood, and we also implemented the same amount of students at Grandview Elementary. And we are also implementing, or we have implemented universal breakfast at Frazee Elementary and Fayette Central Elementary. School visits daily. Basically, all the schools are visited by myself, usually anywhere from once to twice a week, each building. The new breakfast cart at CHS, this was something that we're big into in our breakfast initiative for the district, and so we've increased breakfast by 80% just by putting this breakfast cart across from the bookstore at CHS. Our new line, we created a new concept station for CHS students, and we increased lunch participation by 20%. With that, we moved that current station outside into the cafeteria, and we expanded a point of service at CHS to kind of speed the students through, and that's working very well. This is an overview of our meal counts for year on year, just to give the board an idea. It's a little, sorry, I should have probably made it a little bit darker. But basically, just to show you that participation as a whole is up, and we broke it down just by breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, and then just to show you the reimbursement. And that's in your packet too, so you can refer to that if you wish. Fall and winter promotions. Chartwell's is very big into our promotions, so as you can see, these are the list of different promotions that we've done thus far. And then as we go through the next slides, I'll just explain a little bit the pictures. We did a Think Your Drink, which was March. That was a National Nutrition Month, where the students were in every building. We did a demonstration of different types of beverages and how much sugar is in all these beverages. A lot of students were very surprised at what they were drinking and choosing. The Dark Leafy Green Challenge, that was where we asked the kids to come in and try, 5 or 6 different types of dark leafy greens, and they would get a prize. For the elementaries, we did cookies. So for, you're going a little fast.
Oh, sorry.
So for one of the, can you go back to the other side, please? Thank you. There we go. The other one where you can see all the masks, that was from Mardi Gras. Whole grains were our food focus for that month. So every child that came in and tried a different type of whole grain salad, quinoa, wheat berry salad, they received a mask. Sorry, go for it. The next is, this is Ava with Head Start students at Fayette Central. That was all part of National Nutrition Month as well. Ava, they like to call her the nutritional bunny. She came in and she just spoke to them about incorporating more water into their diet, and we gave them bookmarks, and they were very excited. Compass in the community, I just wanted to highlight showing that this past March we did, I got 20 of our 75 employees to volunteer their time to come and help pass food out at the Gleaners Food Bank. And for Compass, that's huge. That's to get a good percentage of your employees to actually take time out of their day and come down and help. It was a wonderful experience. And then we also did POW, Pink Out Wednesday, in October. We actually raised about $700. We did it for the whole month of October, and so that money went to Susan G. Komen Foundation. This is just some pictures of your food, of the food that we're serving the students, just to kind of give the new board members an overview of what we do best, and then a nice portrait of our employees. And then Spartan Summer Food Truck, this was actually a slide from the previous fall presentation that we did as an overview of the Spartan Summer Food Truck. As you can see, these are just the data and stats of how much money we made, our costs, profit, and just to let you know that we are going forward, and we will be starting the Spartan Summer Food Truck, as I like to say, 2.0. With it's new and improved, and that will be starting on May 23rd. Any questions?
John, can you talk just briefly about a couple of the initiatives we're thinking about as we move into another year? Some things we talked about as far as opportunities for nutritional education, I think.
Absolutely. One, are you referring to middle school?
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, Ms. Denham's here, and she can kind of talk to you a little bit about it as well if you have any specific questions. For iStep Week, this past March, we did universal breakfast in the middle school, where we served every child a breakfast for free, and they loved it. And the time was worked in the morning, because Miss Denham used to provide them snacks that she would pay out of her own pocket, and so
That would be great.
out of their student funds. So how much would you say we saved you?
Oh, $600.
Yeah. So we decided that there would be no reason to do that. We could do it for her, and so every child received a breakfast. We brought a cooler of milk and breakfast items to each classroom with a roster sheet. Child just marked their name off, took their breakfast, and they ate that right before they had their test. And so I'm excited to actually see their iStep scores to see if that helps our breakfast initiative. And so we're hoping to implement this next year.
When you talk about the profit, do we have it in our package about how much profit you made and how much profit Fayette County made for the year?
No, for the food service program altogether, no. The only profit I had was the overview of the Spartan Summer Food Truck. That's in your packet.
Was the $12,000 profit, how did that split up between Chartwell and Fayette?
That's all for you, yes.
All the money, if you recall, all of the money comes to Fayette County Schools, and we pay them a fee to administer the food service program only. So all of the collections from each of the sites and from the state and federal reimbursements come to Fayette County. none of that gets deposited with them.
Any other questions?
I've, as far as how the food system works at the elementary level, you know, I have a daughter that's in elementary school, and you know, typical elementary kids. Every day we pick her up, she's chewing on cardboard, you know, starving to death. I mean, how does I guess, can they get more food at lunch if they want, or how does that work exactly?
They can, absolutely. They come through the line, and they can pick whether we give them 3 to 4 options. They have a hot lunch, a sack lunch, a salad, or they can have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich as well. And each meal comes with a vegetable, a piece of fresh fruit, and a milk. So they take that. I mean, we do an offer versus serve, so they can choose 3 of the 5 components. And then after that, if they want to come back up, say they want another entree or they want another milk, that is fine. It's just an a la carte pricing.
And I've, heard great things as far as the quality and that at the middle school level and junior high, or high school, but I haven't heard much as far as elementary goes. I mean, I'm not real familiar with that. But sounds good. It's making me hungry, actually.
One of the biggest things we have, I think, is the vegetable and fruit cart in the elementaries where they can help themselves to fruit and vegetable opportunities there.
And there's breakfast as well?
Yes, they do receive breakfast.
Right.
Which elementary, is she at
Maplewood.
Maplewood, I'm sorry. Okay, so she's at Maplewood. We don't have our universal breakfast going there at Maplewood, but I know Ms. Casaro does make sure that all the children at least go into the cafeteria first and they have the option to have breakfast. So same thing, they get, like a breakfast entree, milk, piece of fruit, and once again, they can pick 3 of the 4 of those components as well.
And she tells me it costs $20 for breakfast. I think she's kind of
That's great.
She's good.
That's good stuff. I think that's why the initial push for the universal breakfast is so that it's free for everybody, and that you just take the money out of it,
Right.
and it's not about status, it's not about free, reduced, or paid,
Right.
And so the kids can just eat together as almost like a family in their classroom.
And I know most of the kids at elementary age are eating everything they can get their hands on. And it's kind of when she comes out and we're going to get something to eat, it makes me wonder on the kids that can't get, a lot of times probably the best meal they could have, throughout the day.
Absolutely.
So, I was just curious if they could get seconds or how that did work.
Well, the contract as Siobhan indicated, was established for the 2011-2012 school year, and the way the contract is written, it's with up to 4 one-year renewals. This would be our first renewal. If both parties are satisfied with the results of the service, I think we're more than satisfied with that. I firmly believe that we are on the correct path of meeting the needs of our students via the Chartwells program. So at this point, I'd ask your support in the continuation of our food service contract from Chartwells for the 2013-2014 school.
Okay, do I hear a motion that we continue this food service agreement with Chartwells for another year?
Mr. President?
Yes, Ms. Chilton.
I move that we continue our contract for another year.
Okay. Second? Mr. Jones? Any more discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the Hall of Fame 2013 inductees. Dr. Hodges.
Board, your Hall of Fame selection committee this year was comprised of Denise Randolph, Laura West, Michelle Witt, Lori Savoy, and myself. After looking at the submissions, the committee is bringing the recommendation of Ann Kirshner and Virginia Vaughn to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year.
Do I hear a motion that we induct these into the Hall of Fame? Ron?
Yes.
Okay. Ronnie's made a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. A request for approval of bids for additional summer projects. Jane Cullenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Burchett. This list includes the items that were advertised as the additional summer 2013 projects. Our recommendation is for the Everton Storage Building to be awarded to Friendly Construction at a cost of $15,000. Chad Friend and his crew built the Frazee Storage Building last year. Mr. Floyd was very satisfied with their work. The tuck pointing at Central Office be awarded to Beer Masonry at $3,070. Tuck pointing at Eastview awarded to R&C Masonry at $25,525.80. The Grandview Chiller warranties and factory louvered enclosure being awarded to Johnson Controls at a price of $110,120. The Johnson Control bid does include payment provisions of 75% when the equipment is delivered and the balance of 25% after the installation is complete and we are satisfied. The chiller, the small chiller replacement at Fayette Central to Shipley HVAC for $19,367. There are, I believe, 6 or 8 of these out at Fayette Central, so you will, how many? 9? Okay, we'll bring it down to 8 then after this. Thank you. That will probably need to be replaced 1 or 2 a year over the next few years, so we're probably setting the standard for what that chiller will be.
What's a chiller exactly? Like a refrigerator?
How about you? You want to tell us?
What's that?
What's the chiller?
Chillers for air conditioning.
Just curious.
The HVAC for the computer lab at Eastview awarded to Shipley for $6,380. The HVAC for the computer lab at Frazee to Shipley for $6,380. The baseball drive paving to Crim & Sons at $16,650. Paving at the CHS Courtyard to Powell Paving for $48,890. Restroom partitions at Everton to Leighton Wood Electric, $6,250. Restroom partitions at Grandview to Leighton Wood for a cost of $10,425. All of these vendors are individuals that we've worked with in the past and had successful relationships with. Each one of them provided the lowest bid amount for that specific project. The only project that was not budgeted in this year's capital projects was the chiller at Fayette Central. However, there was $20,000 included for painting and capital projects. Mr. Floyd believes that the replacement of the chiller is more critical than the painting needs at this time, so we'll divert that money, if you approve this, to the chiller replacement. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain those.
Okay, if there are no questions, do I hear a motion to approve the bids for this summer?
Mr. President, I'll make a motion for the approval of bids for the additional summer 2015 projects.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sewell. Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Any other discussion? Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That completes the action items. Now we move into a discussion item, board protocol. Dr. Hodges.
Board, I've shared this document with you a couple times. It's still in draft form, and we can make changes if you choose to do that. Where this came from is in a board retreat that we had, I think it was about 2 years ago, with Betty Poindexter, as she talked to us about effective boards, how they operate, what would be good operating procedures for a board. It was her recommendation that we develop an operating protocol, and as I've shared in the background, I don't think there's anything in this protocol that's new or different than what we might find in our policy handbook and in the Indiana School Boards Association Code of Conduct or in the oath of office that you took. When you take the oath of office, you take that as an individual. The protocol really is an opportunity for the board to come together and say, you know, we are committed to operating under these guidelines. We think it's important that we pledge to each other that this is how we are going to operate as a Board of School Trustees. We had conversation about this a couple years ago, and then it just kind of went away. And we never took action. We never said, yes, we want to do it, no, we don't want to do that. And as we worked through our most recent retreat and looked at things, I just thought it was important to just bring it to your attention if you are interested in working with this. At the end of our discussion today, tell me, we'll bring it back to the board for vote. Next time, if you see if there's not a lot of interest in pursuing that, we can not bring it forward. But I thought rather than for that decision to be made by the superintendent, I would just bring it to you and see what your pleasure might be.
Mr. President.
Mr. Hilton.
I don't see a need to pursue that any further. Protocol.
Okay.
I guess my feeling is we're functioning pretty well right now.
Anybody else have an opinion?
I feel the same way. When I read the protocol, it was the same thing when we took the oath of office. I don't need no piece of paper to tell me how to act and stuff like that. Some of the stuff that I read, that's when we stood up here with the judge, and that was part of the oath of office. That when we took that oath of office, we did a swear in, and I don't need no piece of paper to try to tell me how to act as a board member.
Have an opinion?
It does, just for the audience sake, it does go a little bit beyond the oath of office in that it talks about following chain of command, talking about understanding your role as a board member, and it's a way to hold ourselves, or you to hold yourselves accountable to being quality board members, which I know that's the goal of each and every one of you, to be here. So I don't know that you can find one document that contains all of this. It just pulls together in one piece and states to the community, this is how we're going to operate. But there again, it's your call. I would be remiss not to bring it to your attention. So, Mr. President, I'll lean to your direction as to what your pleasure might be moving forward.
Well, all I've heard is negative. I would like to say positive. I kind of look at this simply as we are in charge of setting policy, procedures, rules for everybody else. It's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. So I just think it would be good for us to have that in place, especially for a new board member coming on, because there's a lot. As we all know, it takes a year or two to really get on board as to what you're supposed to be doing and how you are to appropriately do things. Maybe for the ones that's been on for a long time, it's not as important. Maybe it is, I don't know. But personally, I think it would be good to be in place. I'll speak to the favor of having it.
I would probably follow Mr. Burchett up by saying that I think that everybody needs to be held accountable. Not just the staff and not just the students, and not just everyone else, administrators, but I think the board needs to be accountable too for its actions. In order to be credible board. I don't see anything new here. I think that what you've stated is that it's kind of draws together what the state statute would say and what our policy says, and So I haven't seen anything new or anything different here. That's just my opinion, folks.
So since this is discussion and you are not required to make a decision tonight, unless directed otherwise, this will be an agenda item in May and you can either vote it up or down. Is that agreeable?
Fine.
And if, as I say, this is a draft, and if there are things in here that you're troubled with, or if you see a typo, feel free to share that with me, and we'll get a copy to you for next month to take a look at. Thank you.
I was going to say, you did get that attached to the Friday letter. It wasn't there at first, isn't that right? And then we got a change. So if you go back, you should be able to find it.
And it was in, I think, your previous board packet, so it's been out there a couple times. But, yeah. And if you would like, I can have Cindy email you a copy tomorrow, so that y'all have that.
Well, I got a copy.
Okay.
I'm just saying, you don't know where it's at. You lost it or whatever.
Okay. It was emailed this week, and it is on the website.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on, public comments. Persons wishing to make the board aware of suggestions, ideas, and/or comments may address the board at this time. Comments which involve personnel or students must be discussed in private. Are there any comments from anyone? Terry?
Well, I have one comment. When you say personnel and student stuff must be done in private, does that mean that you asked to come in front of the board before the public comes? How do you go about doing that? I guess that's my question. Because you said, anything else must be done in private. So, if I have a question for personnel or anything else, do I meet before the public session and bring my concerns to you on that? I'm just.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Let me get Dr. Hodges to clarify that. I will say, let me say this to you. What this really is protecting, Terry, is if anybody's mad at you, we don't want them standing up in a board meeting attacking you personally in front of everybody else. That's what it boils down to. Okay? I didn't hear what you said.
People always mad at me.
But you understand the point that I'm making.
Yes, but when you said that personnel stuff, if you had a question that you wanted to ask, how would you go about getting that done? If you couldn't do it like right now, but if it was a personnel or anything else kind of question, I mean that's. How do you, still don't understand how you get in front of the board to ask this question?
If you want to be placed on the agenda for something, there's a procedure out there, and it might be in the brochure. It talks about you having to submit that in writing. I think it's a week or so before the board meeting, and then a decision is made whether that's placed on the agenda or not. If you wanted to come and talk about something in general that affects an employee group, you could bring that to the board's attention during this time. If you want to talk specifically about, since we've mentioned that you specifically want to talk about Terry, then for your protection and for others, that's not allowed. Same thing with students. Tonight we did talk about a change in the student handbook in dealing with drivers. All drivers to Connersville High School next year, all students will be required to sign up for the random drug testing program. If someone wanted to speak about that and say, I have a real problem with this concept, then this would be an appropriate time to talk about that. If you wanted to come and talk about a particular student and either that student's achievement, misbehavior, or anything like that during this time, you're not allowed to do that. When we say talk in private, because we're a public entity, we have certain notification requirements. So you couldn't call me this afternoon and say, Dr. Hodges, I want to talk about Dr. Bear. Can I come talk to the board before the board meeting? We couldn't allow you to do that because there's a certain amount of time it takes for us to schedule an executive session to be able to make that happen. If we know there are things that involve an individual, it would be up to the board president to determine if they did want to hear that. But if you did want to talk about a specific person, we would have to schedule an executive session and invite you in to talk about that person.
Okay, but if you wanted to talk about a group, then you can do that?
Yes.
Is there
I think we have to be-
between an employee and a patron? You know, employee will have to go to their immediate supervisor first, really, you know, to go through the procedure with it. Instead of just
It depends. It depends on the topic. You know, I mean, if they're using this as a forum to circumvent, it would be my hope that the board would tell them the appropriate venue for them to address that concern. My advice to the board, when you hear information presented during this time, that you thank the patron for their input and not make any commitments to do some further investigation, and if it takes action, then we'll come back and take action at another time, because we want any decision that you make, we want you to make well-informed decisions, not one based on maybe an emotion or just partial facts and partial information. This would not preclude an employee to come and make comments to the board during this time. You just have to be judicious in how you handle the information that's submitted. An employee wants to come up and say, congratulations to the Connersville High School Robotics Club. They've done an outstanding job going to nationals. That's perfectly permissible for anybody to do that. So it kind of depends on the information, how you want to handle it. Terry, does that help clear up your question?
Not really, because what I was talking about was like if I wanted to speak about not an individual, but a certain group, could I do that in the public?
And my immediate response would be, it depends.
It's not,
because
I'm not just one person. It'd be
yes, but this is not an avenue for an employee group to come and negotiate and open with the board and bring in an issue before the board and demanding we need to get this resolved at this point. It's just to make the board aware. So there are some avenues where some of those issues can be resolved, and so I'm trying to be as clear as I can in the answer that I get. So I'm making it more complicated. But
my question would be like if I want to ask a question about something that has happened in the past by a group, you know, not saying the board solved it, just try to get an answer from the board on what was going on, for the public.
And I think that gets back to the employee piece. If it's something that's a direct part of your employment and there are other avenues to get that answer, then it's probably inappropriate to use this venue for that purpose.
So it's not really personnel. It's about personnel, and it's not really personnel.
Why don't you let him ask the question, then you decide whether or not you want to.
Well, I didn't know he was getting ready to ask a question. I thought he was talking procedure.
I don't have a question tonight.
Okay. Why? I didn't get the sense I thought you were asking procedurally.
Well, yeah, that's why I wanted to know if I could ask this question in the future on how that worked, because it doesn't really say on how you go about, it says, you must do it in private if you want to talk, about the question, but not just one individual person, a group itself. And, do you...
Can we do this, Terry? Maybe after the meeting, if you want to let me know specifically what you're talking about, then I can maybe give you some better guidance. Or not.
No, not right now.
Okay.
Terry, if I may add too, based on what I said, I think this period of time is for suggestions, comments, that type of thing, not to challenge the board or ask for us to give you an answer, that type of thing. But let me remind you, this is only my third month of it, maybe fourth month of being president, so we have to be careful legally of what we do too.
Right, and that's why I asked that question. Because, I don't want to ask something that it'd be illegal, you know, for you
Right.
guys to even answer. You know, that's why I asked that question, you know.
Well, but I think too, the expectation under public comments is not that you would necessarily get an answer from the board that night.
No, but at least I'd get to ask the question.
Make them aware of whatever it is you're wanting to make them aware of. Right.
If you have an opinion, I believe it's okay to say that, as long as it's not against a person.
Right, and it's basically, I guess you could say it would be.
And not having any idea what you...
That's why I would say I'm picking out just one person.
And there again, the board can choose not to agree with what I'm about to say. But when you're talking about personnel items, if it involves your union and folks who work in your group, there are avenues for you to present those concerns and get resolution rather than coming directly to the board.
Oh, yes, I understand.
And we have the president of the teachers union back there, and it's the same thing. We have ways to deal with issues within that group that it's inappropriate for them to come to the board meeting and speak directly to the board, especially if we haven't gone through the other avenues that we have put in place to try to resolve whatever conflicts that we have.
I understand that. Under our contract, it's totally different, and that's not what I'm asking.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Terry, so it's hard for me. I'm just trying to explain, I'm trying to share with you some things that I think would be absolutely inappropriate, and try to give some guidance on things that might be appropriate.
I'm not asking something that has to do with our contract. Because I know our procedures, how we have to go through it on our procedure. That's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking you, if there is another problem out there somewhere else besides in our group that I would want to ask the question to the board about, could you bring that up to the public? Not an individual, but as to a group. That's kind of question.
It's too hard, I mean...
You're talking pretty vague. We have to get more specific. I think you always can, anything that's human resources or job related or anything, that's what our department is for. And that's a place to start. I think what Dr. Hodges is saying, if we run the traps and you don't get the answers to what you need or get a satisfactory answer, there are steps to go through, and eventually you can express that. But I think we try to solve those things at the lowest possible level. Where there's an issue, we try to solve it there first. If we can, it's kind of similar to the contract. But it's still the same thing. If there's an issue,
it's just a question that I would have, because it says personnel, and kind of the question that I'd like to ask in the future would be kind of like personnel, but it's not an individual person who I'm asking about.
I still think maybe a good place to start is human resource. If we can't resolve it there, then I think you can take it to another place if you don't get that answer you're looking for.
Well, I just want to just ask.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll go back to another statement. If it's an employee group that is trying to use this forum to circumvent appropriate chain of command, then it's inappropriate. If it's a comment about an individual person, then it's inappropriate. If it's more generic in nature, maybe. And I say maybe because I still don't have a good grasp on what it is that you're thinking about what you need to bring forward. That you cannot talk to the board president about in another venue to help get some direction, or share with me or Dr. Bear.
Okay, I just know that it just says here, just like Mr. Burgess said, if anybody got any questions, comments, about students or personnel, that must be in private. And I just want to know how the procedure would go to be able to talk in private.
Well, and there again, it cannot be just generic and say, I want to talk about personnel, so let's have an executive session. Because this board needs to know why we're infringing upon their time and expecting them to come to another meeting. And then when people from the media want to know why we're talking, there are only certain specific things in statute that we're allowed to meet with. And we have to post that and say we're talking about this or this or this. And so we have to have some direction rather than anybody being blindsided.
Okay, Terry? Okay. All right, we're ready to move on then to the superintendent's discussion groups reports. Are there any? Principals, directors reports?
Nothing, Mr. quick, I promise. I just, I'm sorry about that. I just want to take an opportunity to invite you next Friday, which is April 19th, to our Civil War reenactment. I will leave the names of all board and cabinet members at the gate so that you just need to give your name, as long as there's no impersonators, and that way you can get entry into the grounds because it is closed to public otherwise, and other special guests in health and finance. April 19th will be starting at approximately 9 o'clock, but the actual reenactment will start right at around 2 o'clock. So if you're coming to see the reenactment at 2 o'clock, we'll also be able to see some of the numerous stations that the students will have an opportunity to experience throughout the day. Our 8th grade students or 7th grade students will be getting there at approximately 1:45 to experience part of the day in the afternoon. They're going to be doing a cemetery visit in the morning. They're watching some background on a movie. I can't tell you a short one to just give some background and kind of build the anticipation. So I just want to invite you. You're welcome to come. We hope to see you there. Thank you.
Anyone else? Principals? Okay. Director of Personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Burchett. Just a couple of items. One, with the change of leadership at the State Department of Education, we have an opportunity to look at how teacher evaluation will occur for 13-14 school year. We've went under the RISE program, which you've heard about. So we have a chance to look at how this will affect us for the next school year. So we put together a committee of 14 persons, administrators and teachers, to take a look at this and how it will best meet the interests and needs of our students and how we fairly evaluate and compensate teachers. So we'll be looking at that and be working on that committee beginning next week. Also, we have a retirement dinner that we send invitations to everyone, and if you haven't had a chance to respond to that, we would get back to our Secretary Krista Howe this week, if all possible. That'd be great. We are going to be honoring people around 24 that have given 700 years of service, so it's quite a nice evening. It'll be the 29th at the Career Center beginning at 6 p.m. And with that, obviously, then we're trying to replace all those good folks we've lost. We'll be on the recruiting trail. We have about 17 positions to fill between now and the start of the school year. So we'll be on the recruiting trail and looking for some great candidates for you to look at. Get your consideration for those here in the next couple of months or so. So it'll be pretty busy. So that's all I have tonight, Mr. Burchett.
Thank you. Okay, Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Burchett. I will share with you that I receive daily emails about the legislative session. If you recall, this is the year that the budget is developed for the biennium. They seem to be fairly close, the House and the Senate, on the school funding formula, which will likely contain some changes in prime time is no longer a separate category. Career and technical programs at special education are flatline. Full-day kindergarten, there was talk, if you recall, when we were going through the budget, that they might agree to count those kindergartners as one in the ADM. They are not going to do that. Kindergartners will still count as a half with a full-day kindergarten grant opportunity, and the funding mechanism for free and reduced textbooks is to remain the same. However, there will be additional paperwork related to verifying the eligibility of those students. So as I know more about the specific funding formula, I'll pass that along, but that's just a snippet of the things that do seem to be fairly committed on. So thank you, Mr. Burchett.
Thank you. Assistant Superintendent's report.
I just want to do another shout out for that robotics team and winning that rookie award at the regional competition. I know that is a very difficult, challenging competition, so I'm looking forward to seeing the robot. And I talked to the director that's running the nationals today to get some clarifying information, and she looked at the scoring and said that the team did very well. And even though they're rookies, they are a very competitive team. So I'm looking to see where that's going to take us, and it's a great support for our STEM initiative and our science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So just another shout out to that team and their coach.
Okay. And Superintendent's report.
I just want to make you aware, remind you again that our next meeting will be May the 7th. It's a week earlier than what we normally meet. We will be meeting at the Career Center. We had the meeting itself will start at 6:30. I think we had talked about maybe starting at 6 with a tour, but based upon the progress we made this evening during our other executive session, we most likely will be at 5:30, but we'll clarify that, but I want to make sure you get it on your calendar for May the 7th. One thing we have talked about is the ISBA Spring Regional Meeting, and I talked about maybe we could look at some alternatives other than going to Region 6, because that particular night is the night that we have our academic awards, and my hope and expectation is you would be there as opposed to meeting with ISBA. As I look at the sheet, it's not looking good. There's, they're up in Cherville, Plymouth, Fort Wayne, all north, Lafayette, which is quite a ways to the east, I believe, Kokomo. Then when we get a little bit closer, Greencastle, I don't know if that's that much closer, but that's the night of our board meeting. Primo West, or Primo South in Indianapolis, the 22nd of May, but that's the day that I think we have a Gleaners there. Did we change the date for Gleaners?
23rd is Gleaners.
Okay, so that one would be open, the 22nd, going to Primo South. I have no idea where Huntingburg is, but I didn't see anything on the calendar that would prohibit us from going there.
Jasper.
That's on the 20th.
Get there.
And then Seymour.
It's down by Jasper.
Seymour is the 21st, but that's our 8th grade graduation. So if you can help give us some direction, it's absolutely not a problem for us to attend another region's meeting. If you want to do that, it might be interesting to see what ISBA's take is on the General Assembly, which should be concluded by then. We should be able to be provided with more information on funding and different things like that. And we do have some board members who last month we indicated had earned some recognition through ISBA, and it would be nice to be able to get those in person. So that could be an option. It's not a speak now or forever hold your peace, but if I don't hear any objections, maybe I'll let you contact Cindy and figure out how many want to go or not. I mean, it's not
So it's the
required to go.
22nd then, is
Well,
that what you said on that?
When I looked on the calendar tonight, it looked like the 22nd was open. I had Gleaners, but I think what we're trying to do is coordinate our the May Gleaners distribution with Chartwell's. That'll be the kickoff. The 23rd will be the kickoff then for our summer program. So last year, that's how we did that. We kind of did that all together. So.
That's in Seymour.
That's in Indianapolis.
Oh, Indianapolis.
Right, just off of I-65 on Keystone, which seemed to me to be maybe the closest option for nights that would be available. So if you'd like to go, why don't you let Cindy know, and then we'll kind of see how many people are interested in doing that, and then we'll move forward. So I think that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Okay, for the good of the cause, does anyone have something they'd like to share?
I'll be brief. I would just like to thank Contract Industrial Tooling for their donation to Whitewater Technical Career Center, and the grant money from the Fayette County Education Fund of $5,896. You can't say enough about the community. I think that they do everything they can for the corporation, and the corporation appreciates it. So thank you, community.
Okay. I'd just like to say I know there are a lot of student groups that are going forth now in competitions, state competitions, and I know some from WTCC are headed up to state this weekend even. So wish them well and hope they bring home a lot of trophies and awards and whatever. And then I just, Mr. Tyler, I hear, is running in the Boston Marathon this year. And I think that's a great personal goal, and I wish him well. That probably is happening soon. Doesn't it happen?
This weekend.
Is it this weekend?
Yeah, this weekend. Monday, probably. Monday, I think.
So anyway, wish him well. So, anyone else? Do I hear a motion we adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion adjourned.